All right, Jack. Do you believe it? 34 years of Homer Center football on WCCS about to commence. So, boy, the years go by, don't they? And, Coach, this is your 13th season already, and you've been pretty successful. You've been over 500 for 7 seasons in a row. You come off of a 7-5 campaign, another trip to the playoffs for the third or fourth straight year, and it's been 5 or 6 or 6 out of 7, something like that. So the program's been humming along pretty good.
Well, we generally feel good about things. It all starts, I believe, with a culture and a belief. First and foremost, it's got to come from the kids that want to put work in, and we have a tremendous assistant coaching staff and support staff. I think those are 2 key things, and each year it gets a little bit easier to get the ball rolling.
I used to track this with your father, Jerry Page, the legendary coach out at Laurel Valley. How many times he won 7 or more games? It was incredible, and over 500 all but a couple of seasons. And you've won 7 or more games in 7 of your 12 seasons already, and some very, very special seasons with 10 wins, 12 wins, and a trip to the state final. So what's the key with the Page family with all of this success? Is it continuity?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I'm not going to go 30 years, I can tell you that, like he did. But, certainly coaching under him and playing under him would provide any of these guys that coached under him that went to other places. It provides a blueprint for how you try to do things. I mean, but again, it comes from the 2 other main sources that I mentioned earlier. For any success we might have had is due to tremendous assistant coaches that have given a lot of continuity, and kids that, for the most part, are tough as nails.
And by the way, just like your dad, you bring your little cheat sheet here, and he'd always roll through all 30 players. So we'll see how
we got 40, so I don't know if I'll roll through all 40, but they're all working hard. I appreciate them.
Well, let's talk. When at this juncture, as I mentioned to Coach Beidel when I interviewed him, you talk about what you've lost and what you have coming back. With what you lost, let's start there, because you lose an outstanding running back in Logan Williams, who rushed for over 1,200 yards, Jake Ciani, who had a lot of receptions, and a lot of linemen. And I'm sure that's one of the areas of concern with replacing some of the moving parts with some guys that have moved out.
Yeah, I mean, two key linemen really come to mind as 3-year starters were TJ Taglietti and Tyler Dunn. Seth Pribish filled in some there last year. Trevor Malacker went from being just all defense to being kind of an H-back, tight end type, on offense to help us fill some voids. And really, with Williams and Ciani, I don't want to say they came out of nowhere, but neither of them had an impact as a junior, because one wasn't with us and the other one was only with us part of the time. So they had a tremendous impact on the offense, along with some of our guys that are returning. So when you take those kind of guys out of there, you got 5 or 6 holes minimum you need to fill. Plus, we had some fullback and swingback play out of Garrett Mock and Jake Seiler. So, you got some pieces you got to fill in there.
Well, on the positive side, some pieces that are returning. Let's start with your junior quarterback, Ben Schmidt, who's played a lot of football. Not too many freshmen have been able to guide a team to a state championship game, and Ben Schmidt did that, and you returned to the playoffs last year as well with Ben. 1,191 yards passing. He rushed for over 900 yards, so over 2,000 yards of offense that you can account for with your outstanding junior signal caller, and I know you'll be counting on him perhaps even more heavily this year.
Yeah, I think he would expect that, and we have to have that same expectation as far as being dual threat, that sort of thing. He's come along each year. His freshman year, even though he didn't have a whole lot of passing responsibility, to be a part of what he was a part of is a tremendous thing as a 14-year-old kid, basically, to go all the way to the state championship game. Now, he had a veteran cast around him, but that's a lot to throw on any kid. And last year, we leaned on him a little bit more, both in the run and the pass game. So he's bigger now. He's always been an intelligent kid. He's been a worker. So, we're asking even more of him this year.
And as I like to say, and this isn't necessarily directed just at you, not that Homer Center has exactly been Pass Happy University, but he also is the school's all-time leading passer already, and that's pretty remarkable, even though things have changed a little bit with how the game is played and all.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out because we get the reputation sometimes as three backs in the backfield pound the ball, but I think it's going on at least 4 straight years, maybe more. I can't remember what Brzezinski had in 14, but 4 straight years we've had a 1,000-yard passer. So that's something I kind of throw out there once in a while when everybody says, "Oh, you just pound the ball off tackle." But
No, I didn't say that.
Well, but others have. Yeah, you've hinted that too. Don't try to hide from it. But having said that, there's good coaches in this conference that you have to be diverse and find a way to move the ball around.
And Jesse Baker was the other quarterback who threw for over 1,000. He'll have his top target back, Kobe Doherty, who's now a senior, 45 receptions last year, set a single season record at Homer Center, and that's nice to have the continuity between those two returning.
Yeah, he's very athletic. He's smart as well. He's a cerebral guy as a receiver and as a football player. And he's kind of leaned out a little bit. He looks pretty good. So, obviously we're going to depend on him. We've got a couple other guys that have really worked hard through the spring and the summer to develop and be in our main rotation. Juniors Drew Kaufman and Travis Mock, both good football savvy kids. They're not very big, but they understand the game and they work hard and they're working hard to get open. And a nice looking sophomore, Noah Henry, who's about 215 and has some good physical tools. So we've got, as the receiver group goes, we've got some guys that we can lean on there.
All right, I'm going to take this passing game thing to another level because the secret is out. It was already talk here in the showroom at Luther Ford before you got here. Greg Page has changed his offense a little bit.
That's a mirage. No, we've tried to do this the last several years. We have tried to go to more spread packages, even though we've been a power running team with 2 backs in the backfield. But even last year with Logan, we would spread teams out a little bit and maybe go double tight, double flank, and have one guy in the backfield just to try to keep the defense honest. But maybe more so this year. I will say that it's certainly a work in progress. It's hard because it requires more timing. It requires more thinking, before the snap and maybe even right after the snap. Starting off with who we're going to face week 1, it's going to be even more challenging because it's a good defense, and it's just something where we're going to have to try to pick our spots.
Let's flip to the defensive side. Maybe drop some names for us as you try to rebuild on that side as well.
Well, I think up front it starts with a guy named Alex Pribish who started last year and got some time as a sophomore. He's a senior, and he's a fine defensive lineman. He works hard. He's not very tall, but he's a strong kid, about 225, 230, and he's been doing a nice job on our front line. We have a group of other guys in the interior D-line, senior Dakota Colazar, who's going to start for us on offense. Junior Nick Manzanilla, sophomore Mike Yunt. At one of the DNs, we have a senior Jake Hubler, who's looking like he's going to be a first-year starter. We got a couple guys that are a combination DN linebacker. Henry is one, Noah Henry, Brockhauser. Brendan Mogul can play some D-end. We have Justin Walbeck returning at inside linebacker, who started as a freshman, probably from the second week on. Deshaun Robinson plays some outside linebacker. Mock is a strong safety. And we have guys like Kaufman, Doherty, Schmidt, Shane McCoy, Owen Cochran. Those are guys that provide depth in the secondary along with Frankie Maratita.
A couple of things to close things up. Grade how your camp has gone. I know things are kind of compressed here the last 2 or 3 years with the way the schedule is, and starting on August 23rd, it's even hard for us to believe that we're going to be broadcasting football Friday night. But grade out your camp so far and your scrimmage up at Bishop Carroll Saturday.
Well, first going back to heat camp, I thought we had great effort. I mean, in those situations you have to go helmets, shoulder pads only, and you can't hit. But we appeared to have good movement, good purpose there. Our camp last week was it went pretty well. I mean, you put your kids through a grind during camp week because that's kind of a rite of passage. And our kids responded pretty well. You know, you have your periods where it's been a couple days and they're getting up in the morning and they're kind of sluggish. We did an inter-squad scrimmage last week, Wednesday evening, and have the parents come out a little bit. We've been doing that for years, and that went okay. And I felt like we competed Saturday at Bishop Carroll. Last year I thought they kind of owned the scrimmage, and this year I felt like we represented ourselves better. I think it was a good springboard and a good way to finish camp.
All right, the final thing I have for you, fill in the blanks. I have reason for optimism because, and I'm concerned because.
I guess we have reason for optimism based on some experience at key positions and, as always, the work ethic of our kids. I have cause for concern about filling in some of the key pieces we lost and providing quality depth.
Good enough. Friday night, you'll start at Ligonier Valley. Well, you find out right away because they're the odds-on favorite to keep on rolling.
And they deserve it. They really have been rolling the last 4 or 5 years, particularly. They've always been good. They're always well coached. I mean, you know, we exchanged scrimmage tapes, and they're physical. They move well. You can tell that they're drilled very well in their techniques and in their assignments. It's by far going to be one of our biggest challenges of the year, if not the biggest. And you know, there's two ways of looking at it. Well, you play them week one and see what happens, and then you move on. But, you know, our kids want to get down there and compete the best they can. It's a good barometer for us because they're going to be, quite frankly, damn good again. So we will find out, as you said, right away what we're made of. And I just hope our kids come down, compete, and play hard, and we'll see what happens.
All right, Coach, thanks for doing this and making the trip over. We thank Mr. Luther, of course, for his support of amateur athletics, including Wildcat football. He's been, Jack says, 30 years, I believe, we've been doing this show. Along those lines, it's hard to believe. So you've been 13 out of 30. That's not too bad.
That's almost half. Yeah, I appreciate what Mr. Luther and his staff do here. I appreciate you guys through Renda, the way you promote the game in our area. I think it's second to none. And you know, you may not hear this a lot, but our kids, they get excited about it. I'm sure all the kids at the area schools do, but our kids, they like that. And I told them our first meeting, I said, when you talk to the media, there's a certain way you do it. I said, and if you're asked to be interviewed, enjoy it. I said, because it means you usually did something good, and it's a treat. It's a reward.
Thanks, Coach. We'll see you Friday night.
Thank you, guys.
Head coach Greg Page will be covering the Wildcats all season long, as I mentioned, 34th consecutive season here on WCCS. We'll kick it off at 6:20 Friday night down at Weller Field at Ligonier Valley High School. Greg Page's Wildcats against the Ligonier Valley Rams right here on WCCS AM 1160, 101.1 FM, and we'll stream all the games too at WCCSradio.com, part of the Trib Live High School Sports Network. With Greg Page, I'm Mark Burdick. Jack, we'll throw it back to you.